I'm out of the trailer. If you're looking for a way to move your trailer where you can pretty much take a seat and kick up your feet, then Parkit360's carrier with a remote control dolly is probably going to be the one for you. Just make sure you are keeping an eye on it. So let's check it out. So the way we're going to be using it is going to be 3 different ways today for 3 different tests. So the first one is going to be going into this really tight spot that'd be very difficult with the vehicle to see how that handles. Once we're done with that, we're going to have actually a race between the 2 different speeds because you're going to have a slow and fast setting of this, and then we'll see how it handles any type of incline. Now, of course, when we are doing this testing, I'm going to go over the controls and talk about how it feels, how it works, and if I run into any issues and how we might address them. So I gotta be honest, moving it back here was actually easier than I thought it was going to be, because I've actually used quite a few dollies in my day, and this one, being a more remote option, is going to make it one of my favorites. Because when you have one with a handle, you're constantly following it, and yes, it does save you on space, but you can't keep a closer eye on those really tight spots. There's a few times I was close to this cone over here. I could monitor that the entire time, or even get right next to it to make sure I wasn't going to make contact with it. And on top of that, if I wasn't sure if I wasn't going to make something, I could just slow this down. And you have really good control with this remote, and impressed me a decent amount. Now, when you go into these really tight spots like this, I recommend just staying in turtle mode because you're probably not going to need to go any faster than that. And when it came to if I had to fight anything, we did have our tandem axles and they were fighting each other, but I really didn't feel it at all. It felt pretty smooth the entire time. And you don't want to have to fight something, especially in this tight spot. Now, when you're backing up with a truck, of course, you're not really going to feel that at all, but backing up in a truck in this really tight spot really isn't going to be possible. So this is going to be for anyone who's looking for something that at the end of the day is just really easy to use and simple. It doesn't really take much to get it started up, but that's a little bit vague. So more specifically, let's say you're a farmer and you have a lot of land and you're going to have a lot of different terrain that comes with it. This can handle a lot of that fairly well, and it's going to be able to avoid any type of equipment you have there. So if you're trying to get in your barn in those really tight spots, you can do it. Now, speaking of those tight spots, let's say you have a lot of different types of trailers and campers. If you're trying to get into those really tight spots so everything looks really nice, clean, and organized, this is going to be great for those scenarios. Or let's even say you're going to a lot of these trailer or camping shows, and when you do pull in your camper, a lot of times you're going to take in a lot of fumes with your vehicle. You can actually avoid that entirely with this because this is going to be battery operated, so we don't have to worry about the fumes anymore. And before I go into the other tests we have planned today, I want to give you a few things to keep in mind when using this. We want to make sure we're being safe when we are moving this. So first off, when you have your coupler attached, make sure that it's latched down. We got a pin through here, and we are plugged in with our 7-way. Especially for those larger trailers, you're going to want that assistance from your trailer's brakes on here because that's what it's doing, and it's giving you lights back there. So if anyone else is coming by, they can see that you have brakes on. So it's just safer. Something else to keep in mind is in some cases, if you have anything attached to the side of your beams here, you want to make sure you're going to have clearance here. So you might even need this ball mount to be up a little bit higher so it doesn't make contact with the framing of this. And also when you are going to pivot it at any point, watch out for your jack down here. Sometimes if you're making a really tight turn, you can even remove the foot of your jack so you can get a little bit more clearance. But from there, all we do to actually get this to operate, all I got to do is pull this red knob, make sure it's out, press the on button, and then turn on the controller. And I can talk about how that controller is going to work. So again, we have the on button. We have 2 speeds. It starts off on turtle mode. We got rabbit mode for faster. So let's go back to turtle. So let's say we want to go in one direction. If I pull down on it, if I pull down, that's going to pull it forward. If I push back, this is going to go backwards. Now, if we want to make our 0 turns, all I got to do is push up on one, pull down the other, and the opposite direction, they go the opposite way. Just like that. And what's really neat about these are pressure sensitive. So if I just pull down on these slightly, it's going to barely move. If I pull down on more, it's going to move a lot. So we just finished our second test, and that's going to be the difference between your turtle mode and your rabbit mode, and there is a pretty big difference. Now both are going to be important. You're going to want your turtle mode again for those really tight areas, and that rabbit mode for those longer distances when you are trying to store it somewhere. Now you probably noticed with ours, I had to adjust mine a few times since it was turning in one direction, and I think that's because we're on a slight gradient right now. And I think that's going to try to pivot your dolly in one direction to kind of go down that slope. So you might come across that, but if I'm being honest, in most cases, you're probably going to be making more turns than you are going straight. And speaking of that gradient, we can actually do a test now to see how we handle the one we have here. So I got this in turtle mode right now, and it's the same speed as what we had before. It doesn't look like it's struggling at all. So let's kick it up a notch. Now we got it in rabbit mode. It's still sounding the same. It's still moving at a fast pace, so I'm really not seeing any issue here. Now another thing to keep in mind is what the grade percent is going to be. So if you're going up a 4% grade, you can carry trailers over 10,000 pounds. If you're going up a grade at 6%, then it has to be below 10,000 pounds. And what that really means is if you got a slight incline to your driveway, you're going to be fine. Anything more than that, I wouldn't recommend. All right, now let's go into some of the details and things to actually know about this. So this is going to be rated for 13,000 pounds for your total trailer load. It's also going to have a max tongue weight of 1,300 pounds. Now really what the difference there is, again, your total weight that's going to be being pulled behind you is going to be maxed out at 13,000 pounds. And the tongue weight is just going to be the downward force being applied to the ball itself. Now, speaking of this ball, you are going to get two different ones that come in this kit. You're going to get the 2-inch one, and you're going to get the 2 5/16 ball. You can easily swap those out just by twisting this off and putting the new one on. And you can also adjust this height, like I was talking about earlier. The way you can do that is you're going to have a pin here at the bottom. I pull this out. This is actually a really easy to pull pin. It's going to have this rubber coating on the end of it, and it's bent, so it gives you a little more leverage. Then you can pull this pin out here. You can see that ball drop. This is going to be its lowest position, and where I just took it from, it's going to be its second height, and then it's going to have a third height right here. So you can kind of match that up to your size trailer so you can make sure everything's relatively at an even level. And this is what it's going to look like here in the bottom. We're going to have this cutout that matches that pin. And of course, if you need more information on those exact heights, you can actually find that information on our webpage. So you've moved your trailer. What are you going to do if it runs out of energy at this point? Because it is going to be battery powered. Because this is going to weigh 435 pounds. You're not going to be picking it up and moving it somewhere. What you can do instead is put it in neutral mode. You're going to have a knob on either side. You just turn that. Same thing for the other side. Once you have those knobs turned, we have it in neutral, and now I can just simply push it. So this is going to be a lifesaver. If anything does happen, you've been moving it all day, you can still get it to the place to charge it up. And speaking of that, we can kind of talk about some of the maintenance and charging of it now. So we brought this inside and let it charge overnight. Now we have a full battery, and we were able to achieve that because we do have this cable that plugs directly into our wall that comes with your kit. Now I will say it is a little bit shorter, so make sure you do have an outlet nearby that you can charge this with. Now at the moment, on our little display right here, it's going to show that we have 1 bar on it, along with a couple other things that you can find in your owner's manual. Now that 1 bar isn't indicating that we're only at 1 bar of battery, it's indicating that we're currently charging since it is flashing. If I unplug this now, you'll see that all those bars fill up, saying that we do have a full charge. Now when it does come to charging the battery, I do have a couple recommendations. So when you get done using it, just charge it up, just be on the safe side so it's always ready to go when you need it. But I wouldn't recommend charging it for an extended period of time. So if you let this charge for a week, that's a little bit overkill and it can actually be kind of bad for your battery. So instead, once it's fully charged, just unplug it. But if you don't use it for a couple months, charge it up a little bit, and once it's fully charged, unplug it again. And when it comes to charging this, you can turn it off just by pressing this button right here, the power button. But when you have it connected, you are going to get a reading of the voltage it's getting. You also get this reading when you're using it and moving it around. Now, something I actually did when I first tried to charge this up was I pressed the disconnect button, I pushed that in, and what that's going to do is cut off all supply to the battery here. So if you press this in, you actually can't charge your battery, so you will need to have this pulled out to actually get some charge. And something that I found, if you find that you're not getting a full readout after charging it for a day or so, is you can actually disconnect the battery and then reconnect the battery, replug in your cable, and if you have been charging for a while, you should get this display. What I also like about this is that your controller isn't going to take any batteries. It will be charged up, so you don't have to worry about replacing those. And you're going to have a USB-C on one end, plug into the bottom of it, and there's just going to be a regular USB end to the other side. And I want to mention these semi-pneumatic tires real quick. So with that, they're going to have this solid construction with this hollow interior. So that's nice because we don't have to air these up. They're just easier to maintain. Now, something I do want to point out is that there's going to be space underneath some of these tires and they are going to be lifted up. That's going to be because they're designed to go over a lot of uneven surfaces and help you go up those inclines. Now, if you're going over loose surfaces, like really loose gravel, this can still do it. It might struggle a little bit. You're better off staying with more packed surfaces. But when it does come to maintaining these, what I do recommend is before using it, just make sure your studs are tightened into place so you can use it safely. And to get the most out of this too, you want to make sure that you are storing it inside. Though I understand this is fairly large, so finding the right spot can be kind of tricky. Now, there's a lot of places you can put it. I know a lot of people will actually put it underneath their trailer when they're not using it since it is fairly low to the ground. And I can actually get you that measurement real quick. And right now, this is going to be sitting at 15 inches, so fairly low to the ground. If you have anything else like some shelving or some place off in a corner, I think it'll fit nicely there too. Well, that about does it. Now let me give you my final thoughts. So overall, I like this because, again, it is really easy to use and it's just very versatile, being able to pull a lot of different trailers behind you, and it handles a lot of those more packed terrains really nicely. Now, I will say when I was using the control at first, it could feel a little bit awkward, and it just depends on what orientation you are. If you're standing in front of it versus behind it, if you push the controls one direction, you might go the opposite of what you were meaning to. So just take maybe 10, 15 minutes to get acclimated to it, and I think it'll become pretty easy. Now, the one downside I can say about it is just its size. If you just don't have the space for this, or if the weight of it just kind of intimidates you, then I'd recommend checking out Trailer Valet's dolly, because they're going to have a remote one, and with that remote one, it's going to have a much smaller footprint, and it's going to weigh a little bit under 100 pounds. So it's going to be great in that aspect. But I will say when it comes to hooking up to trailers, this is going to be the much easier option. This, I'm just pulling it right to this coupler and dropping everything down. With the Trailer Valets, you're going to have a tool that you have to tighten to the coupler itself. So if you maybe have the one trailer, it's fine. But if you're hooking up to multiple trailers a day, I'd definitely go with this. But just don't take my word for it. Send us a picture or leave us a review telling us how you're using it, what type of trailers are pulling behind you, and how it feels. But again, I'm Matt, and thanks for watching.